Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into day 4 of our exploration of drug development.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, isn't it?
It is. And, over the past few days, we've journeyed from those initial sparks of scientific ingenuity that birthed the new drug idea all the way to the watchful eyes of the FDA. But hold on. There's a whole other crucial stage before any new medicine finds its way into your medicine cabinet.
Right.
It has to navigate a whole obstacle course of safety checks. And that's where today's deep dive comes in. ICH safety guidelines, specifically the S series.
It's a bit of a mouthful, right?
It is, but think of it this way. These are the rules of the road, making sure those promising new drugs are safe before they even get close to hitting the market. Remember that bottle of pain reliever you mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
But before it landed in your hand, it had to pass muster with these very guidelines. And to help us decode all this, we have our expert back with us. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
You're a pro at navigating this intricate world of guidelines. So imagine this. You're about to embark on a clinical trial, testing a brand new drug on humans for the very first time.
Okay. I'm following.
What are those essential safety tests you absolutely have to consider?
Well, first off, you got to understand the DNA. Like, picture it as your body's instruction manual, right? You got to make sure the drug doesn't mess with that manual, corrupt the instructions and cause some serious problems down the line.
That makes sense. So where do these ICH guidelines fit into all of this?
Okay, so ICH stands for the International Council for Harmonization.
Okay.
They're basically the ones who've created this whole set of, global standards to ensure that drug safety testing is consistent across different countries. It's like a universal language, for patient safety.
So it's like a safety net, ensuring that new medicines are thoroughly vetted before they even get close to a pharmacy shelf.
Exactly. And these guidelines cover a whole spectrum of safety aspects, from making sure the drug doesn't cause cancer to checking its potential impact on, pregnancy.
Now, I know we've touched upon some of these safety aspects in our previous deep dives, but can we unpack them a little further? For instance, what exactly does genotoxicity mean? I mean, it sounds pretty intense.
It is. It is intense, but also incredibly important. You see, genotoxicity is all about a substance's potential to damage DNA. And any damage to that instruction manual, as we talked about earlier, can lead to changes in our cells, which can sometimes lead to cancer.
So it's basically about protecting ourselves from potential harm caused by a new drug.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. What kind of tests are actually involved in assessing this genotoxicity?
Oh, there's a whole array of tests, but one that I find particularly fascinating is the COMET assay.
COMET assay.
Yeah, imagine this, right? Damaged DNA under a microscope. It actually looks like a comet with a tail, streaking across the slide. It's a visual reminder of how scientists are, literally looking for signs of DNA distress caused by a drug.
Wow, that's a powerful image. Makes you realize how detailed these safety evaluations really are. And I know we also talked about another big one, carcinogenicity.
Yeah, carcinogenicity is all about a drug's potential to cause cancer.
Right.
And this is where those long-term studies, often involving animals, come into play. Scientists carefully monitor these animals for tumor development over extended periods, just trying to understand if the drug increases the risk of cancer.
It's incredible how much goes into ensuring a drug is safe. And I remember you mentioning reproductive toxicology as well.
Oh yeah, reproductive toxicology is crucial. It's all about understanding how a drug might affect fertility, pregnancy, and the development of offspring.
Right.
These studies involve testing the drug at various stages of reproduction to ensure it doesn't pose a risk to, future generations.
These studies must be so important, especially for, people planning to have children.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like building a house, right? You wouldn't just focus on the exterior. You'd want to make sure the foundation is solid and that everything inside is safe and sound.
That's a fantastic analogy. And just like a house needs all its systems to work together, harmoniously, these ICH guidelines cover this wide spectrum of safety checks to ensure that a new drug is truly safe for people to use.
It really does feel like there's a whole team of experts scrutinizing every single aspect of a new drug.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And remember those FDA scientists we talked about?
Yes.
They're a critical part of this process. They meticulously review all the data from these safety tests, acting as guardians of public health.
So they're kind of like detectives, looking for any clues that might suggest a safety risk.
Exactly. They're looking for anything that seems, out of place, anything that might raise a red flag about the drug's safety.
It sounds like incredibly important work. Thinking about all these tests and reviews, I'm curious to know more about how these guidelines actually play out in real drug development. Like, can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say researchers are developing a new drug for high blood pressure.
Okay.
Before they can even think about testing it in humans, they need to run a whole battery of tests according to these guidelines, checking for genotoxicity, carcinogenicity, reproductive toxicity, the whole works. Only after they've gathered and analyzed all of this data can they move forward with clinical trials.
So these guidelines are really the foundation upon which a drug's safety profile is built.
Precisely. And remember, it doesn't just stop there. Even after a drug is approved and on the market, these guidelines, they continue to play a role.
Oh, interesting.
If any new safety concerns arise, these guidelines provide the framework for investigating those concerns and determining the best course of action.
That's good to know. It really does sound like these ICH guidelines are constantly at work, ensuring that the medicines we rely on are held to the highest safety standards.
Absolutely. It's a complex system, but it's designed to protect patients and make sure new medicines are both effective and safe for use.
And that's the ultimate goal, right?
Exactly.
As we really dig into these ICH guidelines, I'm kind of struck by just how much data is involved in this whole process. It's almost like trying to put together a giant puzzle, right? With each piece representing a different safety test or study.
That's a great way to put it. We're talking about mountains of information, from preclinical studies, clinical trials, manufacturing records, all meticulously documented and analyzed to ensure the safety of a new drug. And it's not just about, collecting the data, but it's about making sure that that data is accurate, reliable, and tells a consistent story about the drug's safety profile.
So it's like making sure each puzzle piece fits perfectly and contributes to the bigger picture.
Right.
What happens if a piece seems to be missing or doesn't quite fit?
That's where those FDA detectives that we talked about, they come in, right?
Right.
They're trained to spot any inconsistencies or red flags in the data and ensuring that any potential safety risks are thoroughly investigated. And remember those CFR regulations that we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
They provide a solid framework for good manufacturing practices, making sure that drugs are produced in a controlled and consistent manner, which really helps to guarantee the quality and reliability of the data.
It sounds like such a multi-layered system with guidelines and regulations working in tandem to really create this robust safety net for patients.
Absolutely.
And I imagine these regulations become even more critical when you're dealing with really complex manufacturing processes like the ones used for biotechnology products.
Absolutely. Biotech products, they often involve living organisms or complex molecules, making that manufacturing process so much more intricate. Imagine trying to bake a cake versus growing a delicate flower,
Right.
The level of precision and control required, it's vastly different.
So it's like stepping up the complexity level of the puzzle even further.
Yeah.
Are there specific guidelines that address these unique challenges?
Yes, absolutely. The ICHQ guidelines, they provide very specific instructions for the development, manufacturing, and quality control of these biotech products. They address everything from the characterization of cell banks, which are kind of the starting material for many biotech products, to the management of potential contaminants.
Cell banks, that sounds fascinating. What exactly are they and why are they so important in this context?
Think of cell banks as the foundation upon which many biotech products are built.
Okay.
They're very carefully controlled collections of cells that are used to produce the drug substance. It's kind of like having a master blueprint that ensures consistency and quality in the manufacturing process.
So it's about making sure that the starting material is pure and reliable. That makes sense. But what happens if a company needs to make changes to a drug's manufacturing process after it's already been approved?
That's a great question. The ICHQ 12 guideline, it provides a framework for managing those post-approval changes. It's like having a roadmap that guides companies through that regulatory process, making sure any changes are made, safely and effectively. It's not just simply tweaking a recipe,
Wow.
It involves careful risk assessment, data analysis, and open communication with those regulatory authorities.
It sounds like a delicate balance between innovation and maintaining that safety and efficacy of the drug.
Exactly.
Are there specific instances where these post-approval changes become necessary?
Absolutely. Sometimes, new side effects are discovered that weren't apparent during those initial clinical trials. And this can happen because clinical trials, they only involve a limited number of patients and a specific time frame. So once a drug is on the market and it's being used by a much wider population, rarer side effects or drug interactions, they might surface.
So it's like getting like a more complete picture of the puzzle as more people start using the drug.
Exactly.
In those cases, how do these guidelines help to address the issue?
The guidelines provide a framework for investigating these new safety concerns, analyzing the data, and figuring out how to best move forward. Sometimes it might involve, updating the drug's label to warn about the potential side effects or interactions. In other cases, it might require, modifying the manufacturing process to reduce the risk of the issue occurring.
It sounds like these guidelines are constantly evolving and adapting to like new information and challenges as they arise.
You're absolutely right. Drug development, it's a continuous journey, and these guidelines are designed to support that journey and ensuring that patient safety remains, at the forefront of every decision.
We've been talking a lot about like the technical aspects of these guidelines, but I'm curious about like the human side of things.
Yeah.
How do these guidelines actually impact like the lives of patients, those who ultimately benefit from these new medicines?
That's a really important question. Ultimately, these guidelines, they're all about protecting patients. They provide that framework for rigorous safety testing, making sure that new medicines are thoroughly vetted before they reach the market.
So in a way, they act as like silent guardians,
Yeah.
working behind the scenes to ensure that the medications that we all rely on are safe and effective.
Exactly. They're a testament to the dedication and collaboration of scientists, regulators, and healthcare professionals, really all around the world, working together to improve, human health and well-being.
I think that's a great note to end on for part 2 of our deep dive. It's been so fascinating to explore the inner workings of these ICH guidelines and to understand like the crucial role they play in the development and safety of the medicines we use every day.
I agree. It's a complex world, but it's one that ultimately benefits us all.
And we're back for our final part of this deep dive. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From like those DNA damaging comments we talked about to the FDA's meticulous detective work.
It has.
But there's one more crucial piece of this whole puzzle that we really need to examine, and that's the ethical considerations.
Right, right. While these guidelines are rooted in science and data, there's this really strong ethical framework that guides their development and how they're applied.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that this whole pursuit of safe and effective medicines is always conducted responsibly and with real care for the well-being of everyone involved.
So it's like recognizing that science doesn't just operate in a vacuum,
Yeah.
right? It exists within this broader context of human values and ethical principles.
Exactly. And this ethical dimension is especially prominent when we think about the role of animal studies in drug development.
Right.
I mean, these studies, they're essential for understanding a drug safety profile before it's, tested in humans. But they also raise some really important ethical questions.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about how crucial these studies are,
Mm.
but I can definitely see how they would also spark, some ethical debates. How do scientists balance that need for this research with the welfare of the animals involved?
It's a delicate balance for sure, and one that's guided by this principle called the 3 Rs: replacement, reduction, and refinement. Imagine it like this. They're constantly searching for ways to replace animal testing with alternative methods, reduce the number of animals that are used in research and refine the way studies are conducted to minimize any potential discomfort for the animals.
So it's all about minimizing the impact on animals while still gaining that crucial knowledge about a drug's safety.
Exactly. And these 3 Rs are woven into the fabric of those ICH guidelines that we've been talking about. They provide like really specific guidance on conducting animal studies ethically and responsibly, emphasizing, minimizing animal use and making sure that they're well cared for throughout the research process.
It's good to know that that's a key consideration in all of this. It highlights the fact that these guidelines aren't just about, cold, hard data. They're also about recognizing those ethical responsibilities that come with scientific advancements.
Absolutely. And this ethical awareness, it extends beyond just preclinical research. It goes into the realm of clinical trials where human subjects are involved.
Right.
It's about ensuring that every stage of drug development is conducted with the utmost respect for the people participating in those studies.
Now that brings up a whole other layer of ethical considerations. When we're talking about, testing new drugs in humans, what are some of those guiding principles that ensure that these trials are conducted ethically?
Well, one of the foundational documents in research ethics is this thing called the Belmont Report.
The Belmont Report.
Yeah, and it outlines these three key principles: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice.
Those sound like very important cornerstones for ethical research. Can we maybe unpack those a little bit further?
Sure, sure. Respect for persons, it means treating individuals as autonomous agents, capable of making their own informed decisions about whether or not they want to participate in a research study. It's about making sure they understand the potential risks and benefits involved and that they're not being, coerced or pressured in any way.
So it's about really empowering individuals to make their own choices about their involvement in the research.
Exactly, exactly. And then there's beneficence, which is all about maximizing those potential benefits for the participants while minimizing any potential harm. And this involves, careful study design, thorough risk assessment, and this continuous monitoring of participant safety throughout the trial.
So it sounds like a constant balancing act, weighing the potential benefits of the research against the well-being of the individuals who are involved.
Precisely. And then finally, there's this principle of justice, which emphasizes fairness in the way that research is conducted. It's about making sure that the benefits and burdens of research are distributed fairly among different populations, and that vulnerable groups aren't being exploited. It's about making sure that everyone has equal access to those potential benefits of scientific progress.
These principles really paint this very clear picture of the ethical framework that guides clinical trials. It's reassuring to know that these considerations are taken so seriously. Are these principles reflected in the ICH guidelines as well?
Oh, absolutely. The E-Series guidelines, which focus on good clinical practice, they provide very detailed guidance on how to uphold these ethical principles in clinical trials. They cover everything from obtaining informed consent to protecting participant confidentiality and making sure that they're safe throughout the whole study.
Wow, it's amazing how much thought and care really goes into ensuring that these trials are conducted ethically. It really highlights that human element that's just so interwoven with the whole scientific process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's a good reminder that while scientific progress is essential, it always has to be guided by ethical principles and a deep respect for the individuals who contribute to that progress.
It's been such an incredible journey exploring this world of ICH safety guidelines with you today. We started by diving into those really intricate details of DNA and carcinogenicity testing. That we explored this whole complex world of drug manufacturing and regulations, and now we've come full circle recognizing that all of this is really underpinned by this strong ethical framework that's designed to protect patients and to ensure the responsible advancement of medicine.
I couldn't agree more. These guidelines really represent this remarkable collaborative effort, bringing together scientists, regulators, and healthcare professionals from all over the world. And at the heart of it all is this shared goal of improving human health and well-being.
It's a powerful reminder that science isn't just about, data and discoveries. It's also about compassion and responsibility and a commitment to those ethical principles. So the next time you reach for that bottle of P reliever or that life-saving medication, just remember the incredible journey that it took to get there. A journey guided by science, shaped by regulations, and grounded in ethics. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.